Experts across the continent have been discussing and asking the best way, to proffer solution to the intractable problem of food security in the continent. And the big thing here is that, well, we have a whole lot of farmers, and the question is, how come Africa seems to be hungry in the midst of plenty? Welcome to VSA. I'm Sulaiman. Well, technology has helped agricultural production greatly, both in crops and livestock production. New methods have replaced subsistence, old means of farming. Commercial agriculture has become the new trend, even for the subsistence farmer, as he produces for his family to feed. He thinks of making some money to spend. So Africa's capability to become the agricultural hub of the world is undoubted. Its capacity probably not sure enough. But a continent which has 60% of the unused arable lands in the world is naturally inviting into agriculture. Africa has more to do. Invention, motivation, determination, all these will be key factors in seeing Africa through these difficult times. So for farming to thrive and Africa to defeat famine, local farmers and rural dwellers need to be helped, even the urban dwellers. Now, joining me on VSA today from Kenya, Dr. Hamisi Williams. He's the Deputy Country Director of Food and Agriculture Organization, and Solomon Okopi, Chief Farmer, Rizek Farms Limited, Jos, in Nigeria. Gentlemen, welcome to VSA.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I love the title there for Solomon Okopi, Chief Farmer. When we started this conversation, in the week, my producer and I, we heard one of the experts, and we said, no, she's a farmer. And my producer said, no, it looks like it's demeaning. I said, no, wait a minute. Here we are. We have someone who's a chief farmer. Take us through first, who is a farmer like yourself, Solomon, so that we can better understand how lucrative and how professional the business is.
Thank you for having me. A farmer is that person who can bring food or put food on the table of the next man. A farmer is that person who can play with the soil or play with livestock for us to have something to eat. And like they always say, no farmer, no future.
And absolutely no farmer, we think everyone goes hungry. Let me bring Dr. Williams here. Africa has an import bill, which I'll say is high for its potential. Now, we're trying to look at setting our priorities right. Dr. Williams, what are those things that the farmers on the continent are dealing with at the moment that hasn't actually played out in saying that we get pretty much, import of our food to other parts of the world?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. And I like when you started and stated that we could be having potential in Africa to really be food secure. Mm-hmm. The question is, are we producing at our optimal levels? And the next big question which Africa has to really grapple with is that food production up to consumption level must now take what we call a value chain approach. My colleague, my partner there, has just described himself as a farmer and said he's somebody who produces food. But that's where it ends. Somebody else has to take this food to the next level. Somebody else has to process this food. Somebody else has to move this food to the market. Somebody else has to be able to move it from the market and to the table where now the fork meets the mouth. This is what we call the farm to fork concept, which actually in FAO we're really trying to promote. But coming now to your specific question, I want to summarize it all in one
Let me jump in here and take this to Solomon here so that we can come back to Dr. Williams. Solomon, you know, I love that we started, you know, on a light note. The key thing here is that once upon a time on the continent, a lot of people thought that farmers are people without some formal education. Even though this is not about your person, you were a big-time, you know, financial banking expert in Nigeria before you went into farming. Take us through, you know, the average day of a farmer on the continent so that everyone can better understand what we're dealing with at the moment.
The mentality of saying that farmers are illiterate, laid-back people, I think we have passed that stage now. Funny enough, a friend of mine, we got talking yesterday, and he just told me he had two PhDs, and now he's a farmer, and I'm like, wow. Now the daily routine of a farmer differs based on what area he also on. You cannot compare a poultry farmer, for example, like that's a livestock farmer, for example, with a vegetable farmer. Now, if I get your question right, you're going to ask the routine of a farmer, right?
Absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so the farmer, sorry, go ahead.
Well, Solomon Okopi, I can hear you if you can. Just go ahead.
The farmer. Okay, good. The farmer sleeps. The farmer wakes up with the thought of how he can better production, how he can increase his produce, how he can increase his stock, and then how can he move his stock from his farm to the urban area or to the market. Now, when you look at food insecurity, you have to look at two sides of it, the demand side and then the supply side. Now, the farmer wants to see how he can take advantage of his soil, take advantage of his workforce, take advantage of the technology he can apply. It's unfortunate that we come from a region where government have not really encouraged farmers, so to speak. You know, most of the things you hear about the government doing for farmers, most of those are just things you read in pages of newspaper, unfortunately. But then the farmer wants to see how he can add value. A farmer is a very practical person. So he tries to see how he can grow his produce and then sell. But there are challenges, and that was why I said that for food insecurity, we have to look at the demand side and then the supply side. The demand side is how much do the consumers want this produce. Now, if we take Lagos, for example, the demand for food is very high. Lagos is a population of over 20 million people. And like I told you one time, if we have 20 million people in Lagos, how many people are really farming? How many people are feeding Lagos? Now, in Lagos, if you do a small mathematics, you agree with me that at least if you check the poor and the rich, you spend this 500 naira for food in a day. Now, if you do that math, you find that there's a high demand for food in Lagos. Now, the supply is another problem. Now, most of the produce that is sold in Lagos comes from either the north or the north central or the other part of the country. Now, for supply to meet demand, there are other issues like logistics. Our roads are bad, like drought, like insecurity. You can't be moving. Imagine you moving, for example, moving your beans from Maiduguri going to Lagos. Imagine what you will go through.
I think you have actually touched on some key aspects which some others, especially your other colleagues who have been on the show with us, touched on, looking at means of transporting. You know, talking about infrastructure, talking about, climate change as well as, insecurity. Let me bring in Dr. Williams here. Take us through some of those key challenges, especially in Kenya, with the farmers in the east of Africa.
Let me help the farmer there with another thing. The farmer in Africa, if you look at what they go through, as opposed to maybe the farmer in a developed world, if you want to make that comparison. Here is a question where policies work in the developed world. They support and subsidize for the farmers. We don't have this on this other part of the continent. So the farmer here would want to struggle with the basics, first of all, to begin with. The farmer here even loses quite a lot of his production in terms of even bad roads when they are going to the market. So whatever you reach market will almost be half of what you produced. The farmer here lacks sufficient and adequate and suitable tools to be able to undertake its agriculture in a meaningful way that would be able to maximize for his profit and lower his cost of production. So this would be some of the challenges. And if you look at them from the line I've been talking, some sort, it's really a matter of policy. And this is why in Malabo Declaration, one of the things that African continent and the leaders committed to over a decade ago was that every government needs to put about 10% of their budget into agriculture so that this particular sector can be supported to be able to produce and also to be able to feed Africa. And we're not anywhere near this. If we could actually count very less of the governments that have been able to really adhere to the Malabo declarations and the conditions that were put there, which themselves they signed. So these are some of the gaps that you still find in this part of the continent. And I'm sorry to tell you, they cut across. They're in West Africa, they're in East Africa, Southern Africa, almost the same things. There could be extremes, but almost the same things.
Let me quickly come to Solomon Okopi here. I'm quite sure some of the things Williams have pointed out resonates with you. He's talked about, for instance, the Malabo Declaration, which gives state actors 10% as state actors to take away 10% from its national budget, plow this into agriculture. How, these are fantastic policies on paper, but in implementation, we haven't actually seen pretty much of that, and that is why we're having this conversation, Solomon.
If it can be practicalized, we'll be feeding the rest of the world. Africa is blessed. Africa have enough land. I will take Nigeria, my country, for example. There are lands to farm. But the thing is that if the government will be sincere to say, okay, they take 10% and infuse into agriculture. Agriculture is wide. There is the planting side, there is the brooding side, there's the breeding side of it, there's the growing side, there's the harvesting side, there's the warehousing side, there's the processing side. These are different fields of agriculture. Now, if the government is sincere and they put in money into any of these fields, for example, say Plateau State now, where you grow rice, Taraba you grow rice, Kebbi you grow rice, Nasarawa you grow rice. Now imagine if these states, Benue you grow rice, Niger you grow rice. Imagine if these 9 states come together and say, okay, they will be sowing in 10% of that money into rice farming alone. Now they can farm the rice, they can now process the rice and then sell the rice. Now imagine what it will do. It will cut down unemployment, it will grow our rice production, it will put us on the map of rice, for example. For example, why did Lagos choose to partner with Kebbi to go into rice? Lagos realized that the number of rice, the number of trailers of rice that come in from the border is high. Now, imagine if other states come together and say, okay, they're going to take out 10% into just processing alone. If you drive towards Jos, or drive towards Kaduna, or you drive towards Kano, you see our women and our mothers and our fathers doing what? They cut their tomatoes, sun it outside, no way to process. If you drive towards Benue, you see mangoes right away. You see mangoes rotting away. Why? No source of processing, no source of storage. Now, the government should think about 1, storage, 2, processing. Now, the 10% we're talking about, if this 10% is infused into even warehousing and processing, the existing farmers also will be happy.
We'll take a moment. When we come back, we'll speak more on food processing, which is one big business and to making money, because you just highlighted some of those ugly things we see by farmers, looking at their produce going to waste. That is when we come back. Dr. Hamisi Williams still there in Nairobi, Kenya, and Solomon Okopi in Lagos, Nigeria, with us on the program today. And the key thing, both gentlemen have highlighted, one of the key things rather, is food processing, which is a way to making money from agriculture. But most farmers can actually afford this. Let me take this to you, Dr. Williams. How can there be some form of synergy between farmers and producers on the continent as such that everyone goes home happy?
For us to get that particular synergy you're talking about, Africa or governments in Africa and all the players, we must start getting a very deliberate way of bringing private sector into agriculture. And especially, we must find ways of attracting private sector investment in agriculture, because these are the people who will invest in processing in a business way, and they're going to do it commercially. And so it will be a meaningful investment into processing, and that will be able to connect from the farm, and then we move to the next level. We remember I talked about the value chain approach. From the farmer there, the chief farmer, we've now just moved to the second step, because first of all, we got to realize when we sell raw, we lose on the profit or the margins we are supposed to make. And again, we export the jobs outside. So we're making the sector very unattractive. So we must therefore deliberately be able to attract investment in agriculture. And the best area where this investment is going to be will be in processing. And let me just add another angle to it, which is a demographic kind of angle to it. Presently, Africa has the huge population that is youthful. And most of these youths, if you want to tell them to engage in agriculture, they'll tell you they don't want to go into the primary side of agriculture. They don't want to go into the production part of it. So let's find ways of how we can be able to support them with capital so that they can invest at any other level or the secondary and tertiary levels of production. And that one of them will be the processing level. So they would easily be involved in this production. And because it is a huge potential, we'll be able to harness it. And this will improve into our overall food production and thereby decreasing the food insecurity.
Talking about, the young people, something came to mind. Some years ago, I had this conversation with Solomon Okopi there. I actually wanted to go into farming, and maybe I don't know what happened. So how can we, this is not about me, how can we make, younger Africans, embrace, because he's highlighted that we have different, parts or sectors of the largest sector of agriculture, whether you want to go into packaging, you want to go into farming, tilling the soil, you want to go into preservation, you want to go into a whole lot. So it's a big business. So the food produced locally, even though it doesn't look sufficient so far, but the processing of the raw material from food is very important. So Solomon, take us through this whole business of agriculture so that the young African watching at the moment can actually get in the mix, because I don't think we have enough farmers, do we?
Thank you, Sulai. If we have 10 million people farming today, it's still not enough. Now, truth is this, like my friend said just now, like William said, we have to look at the faces, and then we have to consider processing also. Now, a group of young people are coming together. I'm part of that drive, where we give seeds to the local farmers, we give fertilizer to the farmers, they farm, they produce, we buy back from them, we process, and then we do what? We ship out of this country. Now, we have some other partners who are somewhere in Europe and then in the UK. And so we ship to them, and then they sell in the market. And then by the end of the year, we collect profit, and then we share profit. Now, truth be told, it's not easy to get like minds to come together. It's not easy to get like minds to come together. Then, it's not also easy to process in a country like Nigeria. But then you have to look at other avenues, or you have to look at a shorter ways. So you look for machines that are fabricated locally. So for example, we choose to go into spices and herbs. Take it or leave it. One of the biggest markets right now is spices and herbs. So we farm spices and herbs on the Mambila, and then on the plateau, and then we process, and then we get all the government documentation for export, and then we export. And then if you ship those things into Europe, and then the price is good in Europe.
This is an aside. Let me throw this in. The demand for spices and herbs, is this linked to COVID-19?
No. We started before COVID-19. But guess what? COVID-19 became a catalyst for it. Because now everybody wants to take ginger, everybody wants to take cloves, cinnamon, turmeric, Cameroon pepper. So we grow it, but we don't grow it. We give farmers the seeds. So we get seeds that are we get seeds from the research institutes in Nigeria, and then we give the farmers, we give them fertilizer, organic, and then what? We buy back from them. So that way, the farmers are sure of what they farm, they will sell. So they're sure of their market. So they're not bothered about one, the bad roads. They're not bothered about logistics generally. They're not bothered about warehousing. We pay, we get the warehouse, we put these things there, and then we process. That way we give jobs to fresh graduates. We give jobs to students who perhaps are at home on strike. But we also give jobs to retirees. And then we create rooms for different agro cooperatives. As I speak to you right now, we have like 15 agro cooperatives under our scheme.
The good thing here is that the dynamics, brought in by technology has helped that particular sector. I will come back to the issue of insecurity. Now that Williams is back, I want him to tell us how it is going, if we have similar, move as highlighted by Solomon in Kenya. People of like minds, coming together, assisting with knowledge sharing, peer review, and at the end of the day, take this out of the continent or to other parts of the continent, and in the end, make money.
Yes, very much. We have quite a lot of this coming up now, and actually one of the programs with the FAO in particular is we are supporting especially the youth to come together and engage in processing. Especially we've started this in the aquaculture subsector, and we've got these people. And with a little support, then after some 1 or 2 years, now they're well established and they're moving on in that direction. We've got a number of other groups that are dealing with the dairy, in the dairy subsector, and the concept is the same. You've got a number of youth groups and also women groups that are engaging in one way or the other in processing And also in other chain levels of the chain within the value chain, and they are really doing a wonderful job when they come together. At the end of the day, what you want to look at is you're talking of let's do agriculture commercially, so that it's meaningful to anybody that engages in it. The issue here is, let me bring another angle to it. Even if these people would come together, they would form cooperatives, for example. They would form associations, for example. But then you still need very facilitative, and mark my word there, they still need very facilitative policies that will be able to support them, to hold them, and help them achieve their goals. Otherwise, if they are going to meet hurdles, like take, for example, credit facility to these people that are coming together, to the youths, so that they are not able to raise capital to be able to invest, then you have a challenge there. If they are going to have another issue, and which you cannot discuss agriculture without, is the land question. If they're going to have another issue with the land question, maybe they need space to be able to engage in agriculture. Then maybe you'll find the entire parcels are not available for them. Probably they're being held by some people who are speculating and not doing farming, yet the groups are coming together, they need ranches, but they cannot be able to afford them. Then you have a challenge there still. So these are things. And lastly, allow me to just say something. This is a concept that I saw in some comparison. You now find, especially with the land tenure system, I've seen it in Kenya, for example, where subdivision is still not regulated. It doesn't stop anywhere. So if your dad had 5 acres with 5 kids, then every kid will get an acre each. You can then end up with people who pretend to be 5 farmers, because there's nothing you're going to do in 5 acres. Now, one of them will end up with 1 acre, and if he also has 3 sons, then you want to subdivide the same into 3. Then what you get in Africa is that we keep on with this type of policies, increasing the number of what we call pretending farmers always, and then they're not able to feed.
As a home stretch here on VSA, quite a number of things to quickly look at. We opened this conversation for the week here on News Central, trying to see how we can proffer solutions to the continent's food insecurity crisis. Let me bring in Solomon quickly here, and it has to do with the types of soil which would see a farmer moving sometimes from one location to the other. How has it been, for farmers getting, land for agriculture, especially those in Nigeria?
Thank you, Sly. One of the easiest ways to farm in Nigeria now is not to own the land. It's to take a long lease. Because when you own the land, sometimes it becomes family issues. So you lease land. Government through the Ministry of Agriculture in every state have lands to lease. And an individual also lease their land. Most individuals don't sell their land because they want their children to inherit that land in the future. So what you do is to lease the land for a particular period. Now, because the soil, when you till a particular land for too long a time, the soil gets malnourished. So what do? You try and buffer your soil with enough nutrients. And like I tell people, I would rather go organic than to begin to use different kind of fertilizers where I don't know the chemicals involved in it. Now, these chemicals also have their side effects on the soil. Then secondly, on even the harvest. If I use, for example, chicken manure for my tomatoes, and you use a chemical-related fertilizer on your own tomatoes, the taste differs. Now, so also, my soil is enriched than your own soil. Now, land in Nigeria is a very serious issue, especially those in the east. Now, but in the north, for example, you have enough land. You lease the land. You farm. I don't believe in the mentality of starting unnecessarily too big. I started that way before. I made so much mistakes. I lost so much money. You know my story. I lost so much money. I had to learn the hard way and start from scratch again. And so I tell young farmers that forget the aesthetics of greenhouse farming. Your return on investment of greenhouse farming sometimes might not be as expected, because some of the so-called greenhouse are not really greenhouse. So rather you do complete irrigation using drip lines. Now, for a startup farm, why go through the craze of greenhouse when you can start with just irrigation using drip lines? Why go to, if you want to venture into livestock, why try to start with 20,000 chickens? I lost 85, so remember I lost 85,000 chickens. That's some crazy money. Now that affected me so much. Now, for me, land is not what I want to buy. I rather want to lease. A lot of people are coming up north to farm. They are all leasing lands to farm rice. There's a particular guy, there's a Fatai Williams, I don't know if you know him, a very young guy, very promising guy. What's he doing? He's leasing land, farming rice, selling the rice. Now, what the agreement is, okay, whatever I harvest, the owner of the land takes 20%, I take 80%. That's a good deal. Now, it's high time for the corporate world to start thinking about how to invest in these young men in leasing these lands to farm. Now, you push me now to the idea of opportunities for women in farming. There's so much opportunity for women in farming. We started a project last year for widows who their husband died in battle. I am privileged to be a son of a soldier, a very proud one. And so I know the pain of a soldier. And so I know what it means for a woman to lose, or for a wife to lose her husband in battle. And so some of us who grew up in the barracks decided to come together to see how we can help these widows whose husband died in combat. So what did we do? We leased what? We leased 5 hectares of land. We apportioned this land to this farmer, to these women. We gave them seeds to farm. They farmed these things. We made some organic fertilizers. They did all this low scale. We bought the harvest from them, and then we sold. There are a lot of chances of women. There's a particular lady called Yinka Adeshola. I'm sorry I'm mentioning names. A young, brilliant geologist who chose to go into farming somewhere in Osun State. She's doing so wonderful with what? With tomatoes.
And I tell you, Solomon, sorry to cut you, it's good that we're mentioning names, because we need real people, to inspire young Africans into this business. Let me bring in quickly here Williams and see if we have some form of similarities with what Solomon has just highlighted in Nigeria. Williams.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point there. The leasing still not taking much root in Kenya, for example. Here, people, most of East Africa, people own land. And most of these people who want to own land, they want to directly farm land. And this is why I was giving you the concept where subdivision directly affects actually land and the type of production that we have. You look at what is happening here. In the US, for example, only 2% of the population are farmers. They're able to feed the entire population and even export. Around here, we have over 80% of our population are farmers, but they can't feed our population alone. Why? Because when also people own land here where it's not really to lease, then there is the entitlement that this land belongs to me. So you get people want to produce in a manner that probably sometimes are not anti-agricultural advanced ways of production, areas that should be preserved, and then people get into those, and then you destroy the ecosystem. And this also contributes to climate change, because, and actually to the adversity, because when you indiscriminately maybe produce in area that should be protected, just because land belongs to you, you have the title deed, and you can do what you want with it. I'll give you just a simple example. Around Nairobi, we have one of the counties that borders Nairobi, which is very potentially high agricultural area. Used to be one of the best coffee producing counties. But because Nairobi is expanding, the people who own land around this area opted to go into real estate. So a lot of agricultural land where coffee was really, in fact, now we say they have fruited coffee and instead planting buildings in those areas. So you see the concept here as a little bit different because this is privately owned land here. We have the big trucks, though not much of leasing happens the way I think my fellow guest is.
Let me throw in this as we close. You know, off the top of my head, I can imagine once upon a time on the continent, people own farmhouses. You know, weekends, holiday, they go to their farmhouses, they tend their crops and their produce. They have a good time, you know, clean air, energy, and everything until something ugly started rearing its head, and that is insecurity. Just before Christmas in Nigeria, many farmers were killed, rice farmers, and insecurity is rising on the continent. Local militias are growing, and of course this has increased since the food crisis heightened. Solomon, is there a link, you know, between what we have seen in your country, Nigeria, and what crisis we're seeing in other parts of the continent?
Unfortunately, my country is going through what I call political killings in the name of whatever they want to call it. Unfortunately, farmers who, in their own innocence, are just trying to add value to food production in the country are also being slaughtered. I don't think it's so in Ghana, for example, my neighboring country. I don't think it's that bad in Ghana. And unfortunately also, some Nigerians are also now moving to sub-Saharan Africans to farm. Why? Because it's not safe to farm in some areas in Nigeria. Take, for example, the 40 farmers that they slaughtered somewhere in Borno State a while ago. That's painful. Now, insecurity, whether we like it or not, will create a depletion in food production. So insecurity is a major issue that has to be tackled. How is it being tackled is what, to me, still a mirage.
Let me bring in, in situations like what happened in Nigeria, where the government stopped importation, to boost. You're still talking there? I think I can hear. I still can hear you, but sorry about that. I think there's a little bit of delay. In situations like as I was saying, in Nigeria, the government stopped importation to boost local production, which left the citizens in a worse food and economic crisis. People have been asking, perhaps something went wrong. Let me bring in Williams, who is of the Food and Agriculture Organization. When countries, especially on the continent, shut its borders against other African countries, and still what they're trying to avoid or avert isn't averted. What do you think, policies that haven't actually helped such countries like Nigeria?
Yeah, actually, you can see the results, actually, and I can give you examples globally. Africa we're just nearing a billion population. China is 1.4 billion, and there's one country, and they're trading within themselves. India is the same. US is over 400 million, and there are no borders there. So perhaps even these issues of the borders really, instead of boosting our agriculture, they really could be the ones that are hindering our development in agriculture sector. And that's why I think now our leadership in Africa has become much wiser. So they are now talking about the free trade area and having the entire continent get into that. Let's see what that will bring. But definitely protectionist policies, I'm sorry to say, they've never helped anywhere so much, and the records are there to show, and they would hardly help. what you need to do is do what you know how to do it best, to the best of your ability. This will give you the comparative advantage to trade and make margins that you will never ever imagine of. But you can't really block it within yourselves, because that will also hinder what's supposed to come in and boost your capacity.
Well, I think it's a fine place for us to leave it for today, because the conversation continues. We really can't exhaust the issue. You know, sometimes I wish we have a program dedicated for agriculture, because we really must keep this conversation going so that Africa can get itself out of this mess and also care for the rest of the world. Undoubtedly, only farming can help famine in Africa, and all hands have to be on deck to save the 265 million Africans facing food insecurity. Millions are suffering as a result of starvation, and these aren't the best of times for the continent. So we need solutions, we need farming, and we must say thank you, both of you, Hamisi Williams and Solomon Okopi, for being such nice company, gentlemen.
Thank you. It was nice having you.
Thank you.
All right, don't forget, you can join us live at youtube.com/News Central TV and on Star Times channels 274. VSA continues here tomorrow. I'm Sulaiman. See you then.